going to do just a short one today on a couple topics that are addressed in other places, but if people are still talking about it, it must not have been clear. So we'll pick up on them. But before that, I want to thank Anthony Rayanni. And I don't, forgive me for not pronouncing your name probably correctly, but he also said a comment. Anthony did. Mr. Ingbretson, accept this small token of my sincere gratitude and appreciation for everything you do for the craft. Thank you for nourishing and continuing to satiate our appetites and for doing it so freely and earnestly. Sincerely, Anthony. Thank you, Anthony. Much appreciated. Also from Stephen Jameson. Stephen, it looks like I've gotten two from you just in the latest short bit of time, and I really appreciate that. And your comment, a small token of my appreciation of our friendship and our joint quest. I'm very touched and appreciative, and I wish you well, man. Adam C., Christopher F., and Ben C., thank you guys. This has been a nice week, and Mr. Producer is so happy to be paid a little bit. So any more you feel like bringing in, feel free to do it. Nobody's making a killing here. All right. So, but the first one I'm going to have an image with. The second one I won't need, I think, probably, but because it just covers some territory we've covered before. But my Richard G., and Richard's been in a workshop with me before, and Richard, I'm not sure when this came up. I think it's fairly recent, so I'm giving it a go, but it seems like you and I might have talked about this before. Richard says, I find getting things related to each other in the setup, that is, sitting right in front of you, and he's thinking still life, mostly, less of a challenge than getting the whole of the setup well placed within the frame, which is not in the visual field. Even using a viewfinder. Now, the visual field, I assume what you mean, Richard, is that which we're looking at here. And then the frame part is the painting over here, or whatever, however you're thinking of it. And so I'm just going to look at a picture, and I'm looking at one of Mary's pictures, and I haven't even asked her for permission. I'm pretty sure she'll forgive me after all these many years we've cared for each other. Mary does her own workshops and is a portrait painter in her own right, a highly successful one. Mary, forgive me for this without asking you. What I'm showing you here on the left is that view with the horse that Richard's talking about. And it looks like Mary elected to sort of cut off part of the horse in the background. And so achieving the placement on the page, and I know we've talked about this in the lay-in conversation, so go review all those again. But what you really have to have in the lay-in is a lot of patience. You have to, so a couple things that are key to getting the placements right. You look at the viewfinder, and you're going to see things like spots like that, very clear drawing that exits the picture. We call them exits, right? And so that distance from there to there to there, you need to learn that. There's another one over here. So you have several on the top, but you have two good ones on the top. Two easy to read, easy to see, and some distances between them. And you do have to use your memory. Try to put those in place the way they look, and then correct them and pick up the viewfinder again and check, make sure you're getting what you want. And that's true. So the exit thing is a pretty big deal. Now that's the left and right exit, and the one down below, to the extent that goes out of the picture, is another one that's very useful. The side exits are pretty weak, but you still want to use them if you can. The very bottom of this gold thing here, for example, or perhaps part of this here, are key. That is to say, they're easy to see how, that's sort of a 2/5 kind of a location. I don't recommend you necessarily use words like 2/5 as much as you just look at it and try to own the feeling of how big this unit is while you're watching the whole, or how big this unit is while you're watching this unit, and just get a feeling for that, right? And then when you articulate that with its look, so it'll be a very weak green here with the dark. When you articulate that, do it with its look, and just see when you look through your viewfinder if it feels like the same, location. And do the same thing on the other side down here. But the other thing that's just key to this, and this is something I have talked about, I know I've talked about specifically, and that is it's the center of interest data or the strong data. And so here's a center of interest thing, and it's got to be placed well on the page. So you need to be organizing through your viewfinder, the exits. But you also have to be organizing the center of interest and getting this thing in exactly the right place. Looks like Mary's put some time into this. It's like a fairly early on phase of this. But she's trying to get this point over here, this one. And by the way, excuse my cropping, Mary, this doesn't look exactly like yours. But she's also working hard to get this thing over here. I'm suggesting, by the way, when you do this, you pick one edge. It could be this one or it could be that one. But she's got a very definite point here that's very easy to locate distance. So what I'm saying is you have to do this really thoughtfully, because the ensemble let's say the ensemble of data is data within a rectangle. So that distance down for the top of this thing is just as important as the distance over of this thing here. It's huge. But eventually, and not too far hence, so is the size of this thing in the whole rectangle. So or you could even say the size of this. Doesn't mean you have to paint all these things, but if you get that going and this, you should be able to place that area and have it largely lit. She's heading well into that direction. I don't need a lot of data around the left side of this. I don't need that kind of drawing there. It's better not to do any drawing there to get you distracted. But Mary's using this location, perfectly good to use that. That makes me realize I'm probably should be pushing her frame up a little bit. But you're following what I'm saying, Richard. Now, all I'm saying that really makes the difference is that you take your sweet time to do it. Don't be at any kind of a rush. As much as we talk about getting the canvas covered in the start is all I would really like to say. The start can be anything from an hour to 2 hours to 5 or 6 hours, even on a small picture, if that's what it takes, because you want the start to be nailed. And in other words, these locations aren't going to be something that might be nice in a picture. They are what you're basing your entire configuration on. I need, even when, once you do 2 exits, maybe you're doing this one, you have to get the angle right between all these things. So there's a whole lot of other data besides distances that also is going to be getting this whole thing set up as what I like to think of as the arabesque. So that's that figure created by this to something else somewhere else. There are triangles, rectangles, whatever. In the meantime, do exactly what Mary did and just get some color blobs placed around first and make sure it feels like you're in the ballpark of starting to suggest this composition. What am I forgetting? Evan, am I forgetting to say something that you often hear me say? I have an audience today, by the way. So I think that does it. And, everything you do beyond that is done the same way. It's all, you can't get out of, now you could call this the composition, but the composition is the makeup of the stuff in that rectangle. It's where things land. I'm saying this isn't a way about making great compositions. This is saying when you choose a rectangle and it goes around stuff, the composition is the organization of that stuff in terms of that rectangle, that placement of that stuff, that whole world in that thing. So what else is there but to get the math right? But we do it by feel and not by measurement. We don't sit there and measure stuff. There's nothing wrong, by the way, when you're a student to try to take a measurement from time to time to make sure you're not fooling yourself, especially when you want to leave at the end of the painting. Make sure you just check around and make sure there's not something you can measure. Like the exact, if you have a placement between such and such and such and such, if you could actually look at that really thoughtfully, really carefully, and I'm talking about linears in particular, halves, quarters, things like that are easy to measure. If any of those things are off, you might have a problem. Might be difficult for you the next day. By the way, and if you do it like me, there is no next day. It's going to be dry the next time you work on it. That's 2 days later. I tried, as I said, lay in on Friday, and the thing being dry and ready for me to work on, ready to go forward with on the next day. So, yeah. And maybe, Richard, maybe this was a clarifying question, because I think we've talked about some of this before. An aspect of this, I've said it to myself, even in doing the demo that the room you're looking at here is where Mr. Producer and I are working on getting a demonstration, a more elaborate demonstration for you all. And nothing can be more clear than you have to just go by feel for what you think may benefit you. But it's all about looking for something that may help you get to where you need to go. sometimes it's massing in more, sometimes it's articulating better, sometimes it's, you know, a huge amount of this course is, you know, the color relations and all that sort of thing. So I am looking for you to show the color scheme. I would have liked in Mary's, and this is very, very early, so she probably would be doing this soon, but to show more of the gold on the right side, just because it's the color scheme doesn't feel like the color scheme without just a bit more of that gold. Doesn't mean she has to go down and draw all these little items, but if she just used up a little bit more gold, she could see her color scheme better. And it looks like actually, yeah, still does feel like maybe it's being painted from a different spot. All right. I think that's it. So Richard, good luck with that, and let me know what else I need to address for you. And then Sheila, you haven't sent me a question in a while, so I'm pleased to have this one. And I'm just going to talk to you about this one point, because you make a point that a lot of us fall into, and it's always a temptation to fall into this way of solving problems. And I'm not going to take away anything that's working for you, but one of the advantages of painting impressionistically, and that is to say, not knowing what things are, is you keep a fresh eye. So let's just listen to the question. Enjoy this one, and this is the one about the color. What was the name of that one? A scale of one color. By the way, I should mention just for fun right now that I was talking to one of my former students, Joshua O'Donnell, and he said, "Oh yeah, grayscale," and I had totally forgotten that existed. But I guess it's more of a photograph term, but maybe we used it in the Munzel stuff. Because I now remember doing a grayscale when I was in high school with a teacher. But I just, it lost me on the grayscale. So you could say yellow scale or pink scale or something like that. If it just means the light is light, the dark is dark. But of course it means more because there's chroma and other things related. So, but still, it's kind of it makes more sense out of that, which I had to go struggle to find the scale could possibly mean gradation. All right. So Sheila says, enjoy this one, as at the moment I'm really into color and light study and enjoying it. Yeah, what's not to enjoy? I love to know facts about the thing so it can inform me how to proceed if I get stuck. I can find my way out in a knowledgeable way of understanding better what I'm seeing in the first place before I begin the process. Now, there's a couple little things in that long sentence. Seeing what you see in front of you before you begin the process is a very important thing. It's not about what it is, though. In some sense, the less you know about what it is. I'm just, again, addressing what I found as a Boston School impressionist. The less you know about what it is, the more innocent your eye, the more objective you are about shape, about color, about value. It's so easy once you know what it is to think you know what color it is, too. And suddenly you stop using the data game, that is, say, the visual data game, the color relations, this to this, that to that, that to that. So I'm going to suggest to you when you say, so go back to the beginning of this, I love to know facts about the thing so it can inform me how to proceed if I get stuck. That's the one time I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't use that if I get stuck. I would get more determined to see this to this and that to that. The way I use it, and this is the kind of the crucial difference, the way I use the data, for example, if I look at a thing and the anatomy's wrong, and patently, because the way I've been proceeding in the innocent eye and the anatomy's wrong, I say, oh, so where did I screw up the proportions? Where did I get an angle wrong? Where did I get a shape wrong? And what in relation to what? Why is it off? Do you see what I mean? So I'm saying that when you look at it as what it is, it will tell you, oh, that's not my sitter. That doesn't look like my sitter. And you'd say, well, oh yeah, the proportions are way off. She's too wide for her. The cheeks are too far apart or the eyes are. Do you see what I'm saying? But that kind of data is what that can inform you where you've screwed up in your data. But keep sticking with the data. This is my recommendation. And you weren't necessarily asking me for it, but I would really urge people to think twice about going back to figuring out what the thing is better. Instead of what you really want to do is start thinking about what it's doing in this way or that way to other things, this or that. Do you see what I mean? What the values are doing in relation to each other, et cetera, et cetera. How big they are in relation to each other, what angle to each other, and stay on our little old game. Trust it, trust it, trust it, okay? And play it out. And all you guys are sort of the beginners in that way of saying, unfamiliar with this. Play out the innocent eye stuff, the unknowing thing, and wear it out, prove it wrong. And that's my biggest recommendation to you. Okay. So Sheila, thank you. And I I thank you also so much for your donations and other contributions in the past. Your comments are always sweet and encouraging. So let me go back. I'm going to thank my guys again. It's a long list today. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Stephen. Jay. Thank you, Ben C. Adam C. You're going to have to come up here sometime, Adam. And Christopher F. Thank you guys again. And thank you all for sharing, for liking, for subscribing. I think we're still doing okay. And our numbers are growing. So and any kind of contributions like this are beneficial to keeping us doing a good job here. I hope you like the quality of the work the Mr. Producer is doing, and this is kind of a fun new environment for today, so I thank him too. All right. Are we all set? I think we are. All right, so I think I'll see you in the next one. Have a good week.